This is If My People Bible Study, Part 71. We're in the book of Leviticus, and we're going to start at 15 here. Chapter 14 had to do with something interesting that I've never heard anywhere in any Bible study, any church, any synagogue, anywhere, and that is dealing with mildew in your house. Um, what's this? What is Yahweh doing here? Um, he's going through a step-by-step procedure that will make a whole lot more sense today than it did then. Then it was just like, hear and obey me. You are basically a bunch of stupid, ignorant people. You lived in the best land that you could live in, Egypt, which is probably the most modern, most everything going on, and look how ignorant you are on the basics of life. So just like these people are going through, just like with Moses. Moses from 0 to 40 got all the best of everything in Egypt, and he got his PhD in life and whatever from Egypt University, and he did not do some things very good after that, did he? So he committed murder. So he had to leave, among other things, and flee for his life. And he went and lived in the east, where Ishmael and the 11 other 12 tribes of Abraham. So now we get to see how the Ishmaelites are living. The people from Edom and who mixed with the Canaanites and all the other ites of thisites, thatites, sodomites, whateverites. And so what happened to people in Leviticus here, what the Levites are going through, what Yahweh's going through, what explaining to Moses, and what Moses explained in Exodus. Now you're hearing the details in Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy. You're hearing the details. In fact, Deuteronomy means basically second reading of Exodus, except for the details. So all these other three books are detailing what happened during the Exodus there. What happened during those 40 some odd places they lived? What did they talk about every night? Well, you got to see it here. They even talking about today, if you see, and a lot of people I know today, they have to have experts come in their house and they says, what's this black mold that's growing from the top of the basement? Started with a wet basement that you have. I think we need to have a dry basement here. Uh, what are you doing to negate it? Get rid of it, fix it, clean it up, because these spores and these tiny things are flying through the air and they're dangerous and we need to do something about it. Actually the most simplest thing to fix. I've had black mold before and I found red mold in other people's houses. Red is worse. This stuff could kill you. Gets in your lungs, and when you get older, you have breathing problems. So many people have breathing problems. I have cancer, and I have this, and I never smoked a cigarette in my life. A lot of the stuff, Leviticus and Deuteronomy, Numbers, it's all there. But it's easier to read when we get to the New Covenant. It makes things simpler. So it's just basically saying, okay, this is how you find out something's bad and how to get rid of it. Now you got to get these experts to come in. They're called priests, and the priest will show you how to fix it, cover it up, negate it, correct it, rebate it. And if that doesn't work, then tear the house down. That's a pretty good idea. Some houses just built in places where they should never be building a home. And people who live in their homes trying because they're just scared to death of living outside. Good Lord, they may have, uh, uh, um, they may get some kind of a coughing disease, or they get sick and the allergies and sneezing and stuffy nose. So I'll just hide inside. Living in your house is worse than being outside. Your body was designed to take care of the outside and build immunities. And if you go through 3 or 4 generations of people living in the home, pretty soon your immunities drop. Just like today, we live in a society where you have to live in your home because there's a COVID out there. All right. Well, that's stunning because these types of viruses have been around for, I guess 100,000 years. And now all of a sudden we're locking everybody up. That's a total another story. That's about end of the age, demons trying to take over the world, and demonic people who gladly accept these people into their hearts. And then it's good and evil that we're dealing with. It isn't Republican, Democrats, and Greenpeace and liberals. It's not. It's about good and evil. Okay. Uh, some people have asked me, what am I doing? Am I wearing a mask? No, I'm not. I tell you what I'm doing. Number one thing, it's in the book of Live It. It's a diet book, but it's in there. It's this: hydrate up. Think about this. If you keep yourself hydrated, you're like a sponge. If you're like a dry sponge and you go buy a dry sponge at the store and you go clean up some dirty, filthy floors with a dry sponge, and ask people who have done this before, can you clean it after that? Do you have to throw it away? The answer is it's in there and it's not coming out. Okay? Think about that. Sitting in their home, not being hydrated up, is a dry sponge. You're asking for immunity to drop. You're begging for your system to fail. And this stuff is going to come right into you and it ain't leaving because you've invited it, just like the government is telling you to do. Just like the schools, the organized communist left-wing schools, public schools, whatever you want to call them. Keep hydrated up. If you're hydrated up and you're a huge wet sponge and something gets on you, like filth and dirt, diseases, viruses, other things on the outside of your body attacking to get in, your skin is dry, your hands are dry, you're just taking in whatever is coming your way. And someone squeezes you a little bit, it cleanses you. Keep hydrated. Shaking hands, is that a good idea? Never has been. Kissing each other's faces in any which fashion that people do all over the world, not a good idea. Is it biblical? It's in the Bible. It's like a history thing. It doesn't mean that you're supposed to do it. Okay. Sharing clothes without cleansing them? A lot of people do that. Never taking baths? The French did that for 1,000 years, and a lot of people in this country still do it. They think that not cleaning is a good idea. Okay. Wash your hands and bathe often. I worked in a laboratory for years, a nasty, rotten laboratory in a chemical labs, forensic labs, criminal justice labs, hospital labs, and I washed my hands all the time. Did I ever call in sick? No. Went through 42 years, never called in sick. Okay. Keep your house clean, keep your airflow good. Don't live in a musty home. There you go. Moses went through 40 years of growing up. Then he went through 40 years of living in the East with his family to figure out his adopted family that he picked up, and his wife, Keturah, that he married her there. And he learned the ways of the East. Is it a good idea? No. Were they having priests at that time take care of the families? Yeah. Was that more Yahweh than what was going on in Egypt? Actually, it was. And then he went through 40 years with the people, having to put up with them and still learning as he went through. And he still made mistakes, but he was a righteous man who repented. So there you go. That's what these chapters are all about. So then we go through 15, and it goes through what I call chapters 15, 16, 17, and 18. 19, I call the do nots, especially when you get to chapter 18 and 19. There's a whole bunch of do nots. Now, the elemental BQ sexual preference people that live today trying to force it down your throat, which is Sodom and Gomorrah all over again, Noah's Ark, Noah all over again. That's, by the way, there, if you're looking for it. Will these people ever read it? No. Will you read it to them? You're wasting your breath. But that's what the do nots do. And he tells you a lot of, obvious, incredible things. Things that it's hard to read to children. I always put down, this is not suitable for children because that's, the parents should read this to the children, not the children on their own. Not until they get older. Okay, they just can't sit down and read the whole Bible, and they're not going to understand it to begin with. So you must be with them to guide them. Train a child when they're young, and when they grow old, they will not depart from the ways they were taught. It may take 30 to 40 years before they finally come back and tell you that, or may never do that. They're one of those kids. It has all kinds of things about sexual relationships, and it's just extreme common sense. It is the exact opposite of what's you're told to do today. There's a good one here. So whatever people do in general today, you don't want to do. Stay away from it. Making yourself ceremonial clean, and that's on a daily basis. You stay in the Word. Now we're up to chapter 22. We go through these chapters and appointed feast times because it mentions it in chapter 23. Yahweh said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, these are my appointed feasts, the appointed feast of Yahweh, which you are to proclaim to sacred assemblies." Now, notice it doesn't say proclaim it to the general public. Stand on a street corner in Charleston, South Carolina, and screaming at people that they're all going to go to hell if they don't take Jesus in their hearts. It's not in the Word. But boy, do you see that on the streets. So, this is right. Let's go to verse 3 in chapter 23. There are 6 days in which you are to work. Now today, these days, I grew up in 5 days, and then Saturday was work day at home or fun day or something, and then Sunday was going to church. Now I understand much differently than that, but still. But things have changed since my time. Now people work an average of 4 days a week. The rest of the world in the 60s, 70s, 80s was example was Europe. They would work an average of 4 days a week. The United States worked a little over 5 days a week because they had multiple jobs. They worked about 5.25, 5.5 days a week. Now it is 4 days a week and dropping. Guess what all that idle time is doing? Wrong stuff. So these Bibles verses and these books in the New Covenant are fantastic, but you got to read the Old Covenant first. You got to read all this stuff to see how familiar what goes on then and what happened in the first Earth Age, second Earth Age, third Earth Age is now applicable to today. You can see it is. Let's see, we are in verse 4. These are Yahweh's appointed feasts, the sacred assemblies you are to proclaim at their appointed times. In the first month, on the 14th of the month, between the evenings, is the Passover to Yahweh. So in the first month, March, because they're talking about the equinox. The equinox always occurs in March on the 20th or 21st of March. And then you add 14 days every year, because it changes, with leap year, whatever. It's 14 days, and that's your Passover. And on the 10th day is the preparation of the lamb, which just so happened to be the time that Yeshua was in Jerusalem at that time. He avoided Jerusalem almost all throughout the New Covenant. If you paid attention to the Gospels, he didn't spend much time at all in Jerusalem. He spent it in Galilee and Capernaum and the 10 cities and all these other places, but not Jerusalem. And so that's all prophecy that comes together there. These are all royal Torah. That's what royal Torah is. So what is regular Torah? What is the Torah? Well, the regular Torah is after chapter 19 in Exodus, things go south. Things go south. And all these added in don't do's and all this other stuff is to be understood and followed. And they were to do that, and we should still understand them and follow them what we can. A lot of stuff makes perfect sense. Like there's 613 Torah commands, and at least 380 make a lot of sense. And the other ones we don't, because it's blood sacrifice. We don't do those 100, 200 Torah laws that have to do with blood sacrifice, because that atonement has been for the once and only of Yeshua, who died on the cross, never to be having to sacrifice and put on the cross again. That's what that is. So we'll stop there at chapter 24, where it says Yahweh said to Moshe. We'll see you then.